the next day. And we were all feeling very hungover. And in the first scene, I saw a lady sitting in a blue coat in about the second row. And I said, looking a bit kind of like that. So I said to the company something like the interval, I know what we'll do.
Everyone thought they knew Judi Dench, Britain's most treasured actress, the woman who could silence a theater with a single look, command Shakespeare with total authority, and bring genuine depth to everything she touched. The image was of someone almost untouchable, graceful, composed, above the petty conflicts that seemed to follow lesser people around. That image felt solid and permanent, but it was never the complete picture. At 90, Dench began admitting things that very few people expected to hear from her. Some of the people she had worked with over the course of her long career had not simply challenged her professionally, they had made her feel dismissed, pushed to the side, and robbed of things that should have rightfully been hers. These were not ordinary creative disagreements, or the kind of friction that comes and goes on any project. Lines were genuinely crossed, and once you understand who crossed them and how, you will never watch their shared work quite the same way again. Before we get into all of it, if you enjoy stories like this, the private moments and hidden tensions behind the careers and reputations we think we understand, please subscribe right now and hit the notification bell. There is so much more coming, and you do not want to miss any of it. Now let us talk about the people Judi Dench never forgave. At the very top of her list is Harvey Weinstein, and the reason is both simple and infuriating. He spoke to her as though she could not think for herself, as though she needed to be guided and managed and told what to believe. For a woman whose entire career had been built on intellectual precision and fierce independence, that kind of treatment was not just rude, it was a fundamental insult to everything she was. The incident took place during award season in the early 2000s, when Dench was once again being positioned as a major contender. Weinstein had taken control of the campaign and was overseeing the public strategy. It did not take long for Dench to notice that something felt wrong. The messaging going out in interviews and press materials did not sound like her. Instead of focusing on her craft, her discipline, and her authority as a performer, the campaign was leaning heavily into themes of fragility, age, and sentimentality. She asked why. It was a simple, direct question. She wanted to know who was deciding how she would be presented to the world. That question led to a private meeting in Weinstein's office that permanently changed how she saw him. When she calmly questioned one of the publicity angles and suggested a different direction, Weinstein leaned back, smiled, and told her to leave the thinking to them and just show up. Dench paused. She looked at him steadily and replied quietly that she had been thinking for herself her entire career. There was no argument after that. She did not raise her voice or push the conversation further. She stood up, ended the meeting, and walked out. He did not stop her, and no apology followed. From that day forward, she quietly and methodically closed the door on him. She reduced contact to the absolute minimum necessary. She turned down projects that were too closely tied to him. When interaction could not be avoided, she made her boundaries unmistakably clear. What surprised people close to the situation was that Weinstein, a man known for applying pressure and pursuing retaliation when crossed, did neither. He appeared to understand that the door was shut and that pushing against it would accomplish nothing. Years later, when Weinstein's conduct became widely known, Dench expressed disbelief in interviews, but those who knew her well said she was not truly surprised. She had understood exactly who he was the moment he said that single sentence. He had tried to diminish her authority once, and she had made certain he would never have the opportunity to do it again. The second name on her list generates even more debate, because this was not a predatory producer or a powerful executive abusing his position. This was Daniel Day-Lewis, her co-star, the man widely considered one of the greatest screen actors of his generation. On paper, the pairing should have been extraordinary. There was no scandal attached to it, no raised voices, no public falling out, and perhaps that is exactly what makes it so interesting. Because this was one of the rare cases where Dench did not simply distance herself from someone. She carried away a lasting impression of something cold and unspoken that stayed with her long after the project ended. From the very beginning of their time on set together, Day-Lewis remained completely locked inside his method. He did not greet Dench in the mornings. Between takes, he offered no acknowledgement of her presence. Crew members began noticing the pattern, the way conversations faded when he entered a room, the way he paced alone in silence, the way he avoided eye contact with anyone unless the camera was running. Many people initially dismissed this as intense dedication to the work. Dench did not dismiss it. The moment that made the situation undeniable came when she approached him before a crucial shared scene, script in hand, hoping to discuss the emotional rhythm and nuance of what they were about to film together. He did not look at her. He did not respond. He did not say her name. After a pause, she told him directly that she was speaking to him and not to the character. There was still no response. The whole exchange happened in front of the entire room, and it landed heavily on everyone present. Later that same day, she made one more attempt, suggesting they rehearse the scene together before filming. He declined, insisting that real truth could only exist within the actual take itself, and the conversation was over before it had properly begun. From that point forward, communication between them became essentially non-existent. Crew members later described seeing Dench standing quietly between setups, holding her script close, while Day-Lewis remained entirely absorbed in his own world. Years afterward, she described the experience in precise, deliberate words, saying she found it difficult when people refused to acknowledge her as a human being. It was not a vague complaint, it was exact. She never attacked him publicly and continued to acknowledge his talent when asked, but in private, she made a firm decision that she would never share a set with him again. The third name cut a particular kind of weight because this one came from inside what she had believed was genuine friendship. For years, Judi Dench and Maggie Smith had been viewed almost as a single image in British theater, two queens of the stage, two women who had fought the same battles, earned equal admiration from the industry, and understood the unspoken rules of the rehearsal room better than almost anyone. They joked together in public, defended each other in interviews, and were frequently cast alongside one another because producers were convinced their connection was unbreakable. That belief turned out to be wrong. The illusion shattered during rehearsals for a major West End production in the late 1980s. Smith was under enormous pressure at the time, managing multiple commitments and relentless media attention. Dench, as always, remained focused entirely on the work. During a run-through of a pivotal scene they shared, Dench paused and asked a simple question about emotional timing. Smith reacted sharply, turning to her in front of the entire cast and crew and asking whether she wanted to direct the play. Dench said nothing in response. She did not defend herself or explain her question, but the atmosphere in the room changed immediately and completely. What made the moment sting was not really the words themselves, but the implication buried inside them, that her professional precision was being treated as interference rather than dedication. The fourth name cut deeper than any of the others, because this one came from inside what she had believed was genuine friendship. For years, Judi Dench and Maggie Smith had been viewed almost as a single image in British theater, two queens of the stage, two women who had fought the same battles, earned equal admiration from the industry, and understood the unspoken rules of the rehearsal room better than almost anyone. They joked together in public, defended each other in interviews, and were frequently cast alongside one another because producers were convinced their connection was unbreakable. That belief turned out to be wrong. The illusion shattered during rehearsals for a major West End production in the late 1980s. Smith was under enormous pressure at the time, managing multiple commitments and relentless media attention. Dench, as always, remained focused entirely on the work. During a run-through of a pivotal scene they shared, Dench paused and asked a simple question about emotional timing. Smith reacted sharply, turning to her in front of the entire cast and crew and asking whether she wanted to direct the play. Dench said nothing in response. She did not defend herself or explain her question, but the atmosphere in the room changed immediately and completely. What made the moment sting was not really the words themselves, but the implication buried inside them, that her professional precision was being treated as interference rather than dedication. From that rehearsal forward, something essential between them was gone. On stage, their performances remained completely impeccable. Offstage, the warmth had vanished. Smith leaned further into her sharp wit, while Dench withdrew into her characteristic calm restraint. Conversations became shorter. Eye contact grew rare. When the production closed, Dench said her polite goodbyes and left. She did not say another word to Smith. In later interviews, she continued to speak of her with respect and even admiration, but the affection that had once been there was absent. The sense that they truly understood each other never came back. They were never friends again. For Dench, this one landed hard because it had come from someone who of all people should have known her better than most. The fifth name began in a setting that was meant to feel collaborative and even playful, which made the way it ended all the more striking. Steve Coogan was paired with Dench on a project designed to balance depth with wit and humor. She brought structure and emotional precision. He brought speed, irony, and a gift for improvisation. At first, the contrast appeared to work. Dench appreciated his natural instinct for comic timing, and he seemed genuinely impressed by her preparation and discipline. The energy felt relaxed and promising. The shift came during an early table read when Dench paused over a line and asked about its emotional foundation, why it landed where it did, and what anchored it beneath the humor. Before the director could respond, Coogan leaned in with a grin and made a joke about the audience not writing a thesis. The room laughed. Dench did not. From that moment, rehearsals carried an imbalance that never corrected itself. Coogan improvised freely and chased spontaneity. Dench stayed anchored to the structure she had carefully built. When she offered thoughts or notes, they were deflected with humor rather than genuinely addressed. What looked playful on the surface began to feel like something else underneath. Crew members noticed that Dench started speaking less, waiting longer before commenting, and eventually stopped pushing for refinements altogether. The real break came during a rewrite session when Coogan suggested trimming one of her monologues, saying lightly that the project needed more charm and less lecture. He said it as though it were nothing. It did not land that way. Dench closed her folder, looked at him once, and said nothing. The discussion ended there completely. After the project wrapped, she stopped mentioning him. When interviewers brought his name up, her responses were brief and neutral, and entirely without warmth. No public criticism followed, but no praise either. Just a clean and permanent distance. They never worked together again, and no reconciliation came with time. For Dench, it was never about dominance or the need to be in control of a room. It was about respect for the craft itself. When humor crossed over into dismissal, the boundary was drawn, and once she drew it, it stayed exactly where she had put it. What connects all 5 of these stories is not anger or bitterness or the kind of wounded pride that fades over time. What connects them is something quieter and more definitive. These were all moments when someone chose to treat Judi Dench as less than she was, less capable, less relevant, less deserving of basic professional courtesy. And in every single case, her response was the same. She did not argue, she did not retaliate, and she did not make public scenes. She simply closed the door and never opened it again. For a woman who gave so much to her craft and asked for so little beyond genuine respect, that quiet finality says everything. If you found this story compelling and want more deep dives into the real lives behind the legendary careers, subscribe to the channel and leave your thoughts in the comments below. We would love to hear what you think about the moments that shape even the strongest legends.